Oh, switch All right, we are ready to roll. I hope everyone likes my logo. It's a nice logo. That was actually designed by Brother Lila's mother, who is a professional logo designer. Here comes the sun. Okay, so we're gonna chant Jai Radhamanava. Jaya 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 Someone sent me a chat message. That's what threw me off. Jaya Kunjali Jai Om God Paramahansa Paramahansa Auscutella Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Sabaya Chalana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Shidwai Gadadha Shivasati Go Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath, Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavanam ki jai, Bhaturaram ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Yamunamaya ki jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi ki jai, Sambhaveda Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavati Paschata Dejatarni. So Om Gana Timidandasha Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Paditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, so we will go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta, starting with text 50 in the 12th chapter of the Adi Lila. This chapter deals with Advaitacharya, the branches of Advaitacharya and the branches of Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. So let us share the screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, so let us start. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, let us start. Uh-oh, internet connection. Unstable. Give it a second to get stable again. Okay. Sorry for the internet connection instability. Pratigraha kabuna karibe rajadana vishayirana kaila dushtahaya mana. Dvaitacharya, my spiritual master, should never accept charity from rich men or kings. Because if a spiritual master accepts money or grains from such materialists, his mind becomes polluted. It is very risky to accept money or food from materialistic persons, for such acceptance pollutes the mind of the charity's recipient. According to the Vedic system, one should give charity to sannyasis and brahmanas because one who thus gives charity becomes free from sinful activities. Formerly, therefore, brahmanas would not accept charity from a person unless he was very pious. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this instruction for all spiritual masters. Materialistic persons who are not inclined to give up their sinful activities like illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and beating sometimes want to become our disciples. But unlike professional spiritual masters who accept disciples regardless of their condition, Vaishnavas do not accept such cheap disciples. One must at least agree to abide by the rules and regulations for a disciple. accept him. In fact, a Vaishnava should not even accept charity or food from persons who do not follow the rules and regulations of the Vaishnava principles. So, of course, this whole point is about Kamala Kanta Vishwas, who was Advaitacharya's assistant and Lord Chaitanya's associate, and begged money from the king, King Prataparudra, who was not a materialist, but still, because he had the name king, one should be very, very careful with him. Because actually, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said having the name king or a position like king is like having a spot of leprosy on a body or a spot on a white sheet. So let's deal with this principle here. So we see the devotees accepting charity and food from persons who don't follow the rules and regulations of Vaishnava principles. So what's happening here? Well, first of all, let's be very specific about this. If we accept something from someone who is not following the rules and regulations of Vaishnava principles, we talk about money right now, that has to be given to Krishna, should not be used for one's own personal satisfaction. That's the first point. If you take it, like devotees going out and people giving donations, and they're giving it to Krishna. However, if they're giving it for their own personal aggrandizement, then it's polluting. Yep, 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 even if they are devotees. That's the first point. Second point is actually even more strict. If you accept food cooked by a non-conscious person, it pollutes the mind. And I've often given the example of grandfather Bhishma, Kripacharya, Dronacharya. But let me tell you more of the story. Of course, Prabhupada did say their minds were polluted because they were eating food cooked in Duryodhana's kitchen. But there's more to the story. Let me, for lack of a better word, flesh out the story. Once upon a time, the Kurus, that is Duryodhana and his wonderful brothers, they wanted to basically harass the Pandavas while the Pandavas were in exile. Harass means that they wanted to show off their opulence, and the Pandavas, of course, were bereft of external opulence at that time, although they were the most opulent spiritually. So Duryodhana and company go out, and they get in an argument with this Gandharva in Chicharatha, and they get captured by Chicharatha. Oh my God. And they cannot do anything. So basically, to make a long story short, Yudhisthira tells Arjuna, you got to free them. Now, Arjuna was friends. There's the internet connection. Oh, stable again. Pausing until the internet connection is stable. Hopefully it's stable. So, anyway, Arjuna was friends with Chicharatha. That must be the internet connection. Anyway, is everybody else's hearing the voice okay? No, yes, someone respond on the chat window. Mostly, okay. Anyway, this is wonderful internet connection. So it's okay mostly. So anyway, so Arjuna was friends with Chitraratha. That's because the internet connection's been going on and off. So Arjuna was friends with Chicharatha. Bad. Okay. Oh my God. All right, let's see if we can fix this. Software. Software. Oh, it's on the wrong microphone. Switch microphones. Okay, now it should be better. It switched microphones without me. Okay. software actually switched microphones without me wanting it to. So someone send me a message now. It should be really good. Okay. Yeah, somehow or the Zoom software thought I had a better microphone and it switched it on me. Okay. So getting back to the story, Arjuna was friends with Chicharatha. And Arjuna thought, I just talk to my friend and get the Kurus released. So Arjuna goes to Chicharatha, his friend. Actually, Chicharatha had previously been defeated by Arjuna, and they made friends afterwards. So Arjuna goes and says, would you like to release them? And Chicharatha says, why do you want to release them? They're your enemies. They tried to disrobe Draupadi. They cheated you. And Arjuna said, this is what Yudhisthira said. Yudhisthira is real liberal. So they released Duryodhana and company. And when they released Duryodhana and company, guess what happened? Duryodhana got really depressed because for one who is honored, especially for Kshatriyas, dishonor is worse than death. It's true. Not for a Brahmin. A Brahmin could care a fig about getting honored. If a Brahmin is dishonored, he just thinks this is great. Now I don't have to please anyone anymore. Joy. I can just chant Hare Krishna without being disturbed. So anyway, just like when Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were accosted by this conquering Pandit, Digvijaya Pandit, they just signed a paper saying, you won, get the heck out of here. So anyway, but Duryodhana was not Brahmin, and he really wasn't a Kshatriya, though he was acting as a Kshatriya. He was a Rakshasa, really bad guy. In any case, but he was an incarnation of a demigod, Kali. So in any case, he got really depressed. And when he got really depressed, what did he do? He said, time for suicide. Now, the methodology they used for leaving their bodies was like yoga. So it wasn't like the suicide that we know nowadays. So he sat in a yogic position and meditated on God knows what. Probably his navel or something. So he was sitting in a yogic position and meditating or whatever, getting ready, not eating, getting ready to leave his body. And his friends, the demons, came and they took him out of his body to give him a pep talk in a subtle body. And they said, Duryodhana, how can you do this? Don't you understand? You're the greatest. Go get him, Prabhu. Not Prabhu, but go get him. And so they said, look, there's an internet connection unstable again. I'm getting all these messages. Anyway, so they said, wait a second till it gets stable. They said, yes, we will help you and we will possess grandfather Bhishma. We will possess Acharya, Dronacharya. We will possess Kripacharya. And that way we will take over the country because they're eating food cooked in Duryodhana's kitchen. People get possessed. Actually, talking about possession. Okay, let's get into it. If you eat impure food, also, if you take intoxication, you can get possessed and another personality takes you over. So, this ghostly or Rakshasa or whateverly possession is a real thing. So anyway, so they got possessed and they acted improperly just because they ate food cooked in a Rakshasa's kitchen. And if you eat food that's cooked by a good devotee, you become so enthusiastic and offer to the deities. It will be like nectar for your spiritual lives. So that's why one has to be really really, really careful. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to visit someone's house and they are not following the rules and regulations, what do you do when they offer you something? It's an offense to say, get away. Your food is contaminated. It will send me to hell. It's an offense to say that. So therefore, you go to their house and say, well, I'm just taking fruit. And that's what Prabhupada would do. When Prabhupada would go to someone's house and they weren't vegetarians, Prabhupada would just take fruit or some uncooked thing. Prabhupada was very, very careful about that. Very, very careful about not eating food cooked in the house of someone who wasn't following the regulated principles. Okay. Because very dangerous. It's very dangerous because the blood carries consciousness and food becomes transformed to blood. It's like letting the modes of nature into your body, certain modes of nature. Oh my God. That's why, I can tell a story about this when as long as we're telling stories. When I first started traveling years ago, and I wasn't a sannyasi, I was traveling, I was a brahmachari, a real brahmachari, not like the ones we have nowadays. But anyway, I was a real brahmachari, and I was traveling with a sannyasi. And we decided that we didn't want to take the trouble of cook. So we would just buy food from the supermarket, vegetarian food. We didn't break the principles. But it didn't matter. We'd buy prepared stuff or whatever. It didn't really matter to us. And after a few days, we found our consciousness going down, 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 down. And so then we became determined to cook every day, even though we were traveling in, at first, a Volkswagen Bug. You may not know what a Volkswagen Bug is. It's a very small car. I mean, practically a mini car. And the engine's so small, you can almost put it in your pocket. I had one, and then I used to fix it, to take the engine out. I could just lift up the engine and put it back in. That's how small it was. And so we even cooked inside there with a gas stove and also slept in there at night. Imagine 2 people sleeping inside a Volkswagen Bug. But we did it to please Srila Prabhupada, and then consciousness went up, up, up. So eating food, that's why we don't eat in restaurants. And that's why I will not eat food unless I know who is the cook and I trust them. Then I will actually eat cooked food. Otherwise, no way. I will not touch it. Okay, on that happy note, let's continue. Oh, internet connection unstable again. That is blissful. Okay, let the internet connection catch up. Mana dushta haile nahi krishnera smarana. Krishna smriti vinu hoya nishpala jivana. When one's mind is polluted, it is very difficult to remember Krishna. And when remembrance of Lord Krishna is hampered, one's life is unproductive. A devotee should always be alert, keeping his mind in a sanguine state. It's peaceful, like a lake that reflects the presence of Krishna. So they can always remember Lord Shri Krishna. The Shastras state, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. In devotional life, one should always remember Lord Vishnu. Srila Shukadeva Goswami also advised Maharaj Parikshit, Smartavya Nitya Shaha. That means to remember eternally. In the second canto, first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami advised Maharaj Parikshit, Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavani Shuro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyaschetava Chitchatavayam. O descendant of King Bharata, One who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Bhagavatam, second canto, first chapter, text 5. This is the summary of all the activities of a Vaishnava, and the same instructions repeated here. Krishna Smriti Vinu Nahaya Nishpala Jivana. Srila Rupa Goswami states in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Yartha Kalatwang. It's also in the Caitanya Charitamrta Lila, 23rd chapter, 18 to 19th verse. A Vaishnava must be very alert not to waste even a second of his valuable lifetime. This is a symptom of Vaishnava, but association with pounds and shillings, man, that's a British expression. That means, I guess, pennies and dollars. Or Vishayas, materialists, or simply interested in sense gratification, pollutes one's mind and hampers such continuous remembrance of Lord Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised a satsanga tyagi Vaishnavachara. That means avoid, renounce. A satsanga means bad association, and that's the behavior of Vaishnava. Vaishnava should behave in such a way as to never associate with non-devotees or materialists. Caitanya Charitamrta Lila, 22nd chapter, text 87. One can avoid such association simply by always remembering Krishna within his heart. In other words, even if you're out there in the world doing all sorts of activities, if you really remember Krishna in terms of his pastimes or his holy name, then you'll always be protected. You know, it's like Kavacha, a mantra that protects you. So when I was with Prabhupada, I would observe what Srila Prabhupada was doing when Prabhupada was interacting with different personalities. And I could see that Prabhupada was chanting subtly. Even sometimes you could see his lips move. Other times you couldn't see his lips move, but you could hear in the subtle ether that he was chanting Krishna's holy names. Lokalaja haya dharma kirti haya hani achikarma nakariya tabu iha jani. Thus, one becomes unpopular in the eyes of the people in general, for this damages his religiosity and fame. A Vaishnava, especially one who acts as a spiritual master, must not act in such a way. One should always be conscious of this fact. In other words, if one's taken the position of spiritual master or teacher in any way, one has to be very, very conscious of what he does, of his behavior. Okay. A shiksha sabakare sabamani koila acharya goswami mani ananda poila. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this instruction to Kamalakanta, all present considered it to be meant for everyone. Thus, Advaita Acharya was greatly pleased. Acharya Ravi Praya Prabhu Matrabunje Prabhu Ragam Viravakya Acharya Samuje. Only Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya. Oh, internet connection unstable again. We'll pause for a second. Only Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand the intentions of Advaita Acharya, and Advaita Acharya appreciated the grave instruction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay. Text 55. Eta prastaveyache bahuta vichara granta bahulyak nari likivara. In this statement, there are many confidential considerations. I do not write of them all, fearing an unnecessary increase in the volume of the book. Shri Yadunandacharya Advaitera Shaka Tanna Shaka Upa Shakara Naki Haya Leka. The fifth branch of Advaita Acharya was Sri Yadunanda Acharya, who had so many branches and sub-branches that it is impossible to write of them. So Yadunanda Acharya was the official initiator spiritual master of Raghunath Das Goswami. In other words, when Raghunath Das Goswami was a householder, Yadunanda Acharya initiated him at home. Later, Raghunath Das Goswami took shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. Vasudeva Datera Tenho Kripara Vanjana Bhajana Sarvabhave Ashriyache Chaitanya Charana. Sri Yadananda Acharya was a student of Vasudeva Dutt, and he received all his mercy. Therefore, he could accept Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet from all angles of vision as the supreme shelter. The Gora Ganadesh Dipika describes that Vasudeva Dutt was formerly Madhuvrata, a singer in Vrindavan. Bhagavatacharya Hara Vishnu Dasacharya Chakrapani Acharya Ara Ananta Acharya. Bhagavatacharya, Vishnu Dasacharya, Chakrapani Acharya, and Ananta Acharya were the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th branches of Advaita Acharya. In his Anubhasha, Srila Bhakti Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada says that Bhagavatacharya was formerly among the followers of Advaita Acharya, but later counted among the followers of Gadadhar Pandit. The 6th verse of the Shukha Nunayamrita, a book written by Yadananda Das, states that Bhagavan Acharya compiled the famous book of the name Prema Tarangini. According to the Gora Ganadesh Dipika, Bhagavad Acharya formerly lived in Vrindavan as Shveta Manjari. Vishnu Das Acharya was present during the Caitanya Mahotsava. That was the first major Gaur Purnima festival. He went there with the Chutananda, as stated in the Bhakti Ratnakara 10th Taranga. Anantacharya was one of the 8 principal gopis. His former name was Sudevi. Although he was among Advaita Acharya's followers, he later became an important devotee of Gadadhara Goswami. Nandiniyara Kamadeva Chaitanya Dasa Durlava Vishvasahara Vanamali Dasa. Nandini, Kamadeva, Chaitanya Das, Durlabha, Vishvasa, and Vanamali Dasa were the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th branches of Sri Advaita Acharya. Jagannathakara, Arakara, Bhavanatha, Hridayananda, Senahara, Dasa, Bolanatha. Jagannathakara, Bhavanathakara, Hridayananda Sena, and Bolanatha Das were the 15th, 16th, and 17th, and 18th branches of Advaita Acharya. Yadava Das, Vijaya Das, Dasa Janardana, Ananta Dasa, Kanu Pandita, Dasa Narayana, Yadava Das, Vijaya Das, Janardana Das, Ananta Das, Kanu Pandit, Narayana Das were the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th branches of Advaita Acharya. Shivatsa Pandita Brahmacharya Harirasa Purushottama Brahmacharya Ara Krishna Dasa. Shivatsa Pandit Harirasa Brahmachari Purushottama Brahmacharya and Krishna Das were the 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th branches of Advaita Acharya. Purushottama Pandit Ara Raghunatha, Vanamali Kavichandra Ara Vaijanatha. Purushottama Pandit, Raghunatha, Vanamali, Kavichandra, and Vaijanatha were the 29th, 30th, 31st, and 32nd branches of Advaita Acharya. Internet connection unstable again. Wait until it becomes stable. Okay. Hopefully it's stable. Lokanatha Panditara, Murari Pandita, Shri Charana, Aramadava Pandita, Lokanatha Pandit, Murari Pandit, Shri Hari Charana, Madhava Pandit were the 33rd, 34th, 35th, and 36th branches of Advaita Acharya. Vijaya Pandita, Ara Pandita, Shri Rama, Asankya Advaita Shaka Kata Laiva Nama. Vijaya Pandit and Shri Rama Pandit were 2 important branches of Advaita Acharya. There are innumerable branches, but I am unable to mention them all. Srivasa Pandit was an incarnation of Narada Muni, and thus Srivasa's younger brother, Sri Rama Pandit, is accepted as an incarnation of Parvata Muni, Narada Muni's most intimate friend. Of course, Srivas had the home where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's nightly kirtans were held. It's called the Srivas Angan, which is really close to where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. And only pure devotees were allowed there to participate in the kirtan and see the ecstasy.
And one or two stories about that. And some of you may have heard some of these stories. One time, Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law, that's a bad thing about mothers-in-laws, happened to sneak in. She was hiding behind the curtain, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing. And he said, "I don't feel any ecstasy. Someone is here who shouldn't be here." And they looked around and they found Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law behind the curtains. They threw her out, and then Lord Chaitanya experienced ecstasy. Another time, there was a Brahmin who was let in who existed only by drinking milk, and the same thing happened. And then Lord Chaitanya said, "You are not going to become pure just by drinking milk. So you have to surrender." He surrendered, and then Lord Chaitanya let him stay in. So many stories like that. Mali, so only pure devotees were allowed during Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan. Mali, except when he went out in the street and did his nagar kirtan, that means street sankirtan. Malidata jala duita skanda yugaya se jalaitie shaka pula pala paya. The Advaita Acharya branch received the water supplied by the original gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, the sub-branches were nourished and their fruits and flowers grew luxuriantly. Purport. The branches of Advaita Acharya nourished by the water jala supplied by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are to be considered bona fide acharyas. As we have discussed here and before, the representatives of Advaita Acharya later divided into two groups: the bona fide branches of the Acharyas, disciplic succession, and the pretentious branches of Advaita Acharya. Those who follow the principles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu flourished, whereas the others who are mentioned below in the 67th verse dry up. So it's up to you. Do you want to dry up or remain, I don't want to say wet, but remain full of juice? Iharama Jay Malipache Kona Shakagan Namane Chaitanyam Hale Durdaiva Karana. After the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, some of the branches, for unfortunate reasons, deviated from his path. La tanre nama nila kritagna haila tanre skanda kruda haila. Some branches did not accept the original trunk that vitalized and maintained the entire tree. When they thus became ungrateful, the original trunk was angry at them. Krudahana skanda tare jalana sanchare jalabhave krisha shaka shukaya mare. Thus, Lord Chaitanya did not sprinkle water upon them, the water of his mercy, and they gradually withered and died. Chaitanya Rahita Teha Shushka Kasta Sama Jivite Mritase Maile Dandiyama. A person without Krishna consciousness is no better than dry wood or a dead body. He's understood to be dead while living, and after death, he is punishable by Yamaraj. Okay, internet connection unstable again. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 3rd chapter, 29th verse, Yamaraj, the superintendent of death, tells his assistants what class of men they should bring before him. There he states, a person whose tongue never describes the qualities and holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose heart never throbs as he remembers Krishna on his lotus feet, and whose head never bows in obeisances to the Supreme Lord, must be brought before me for punishment. In other words, non-devotees are brought before Yamaraj for punishment, and thus material nature awards them various types of bodies. After death, which is dehantura, a change of body, non-devotees are brought before Yamaraj for justice. By the judgment of Yamaraj, material nature gives them bodies suitable for the reactions of their past activities. This is the process of dehantara, or transmigration of the self from one body to another. Krishna-conscious devotees, however, are not subject to be judged by Yamaraj. For devotees, there is an open road, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. After giving up the body, Chaktvadeham, a devotee never again has to accept another material body, for in his spiritual body he goes back home, back to Godhead. The punishments of Yamaraj are meant for persons who are not Krishna conscious. It's a little scary. Kevala, you better watch out. You better behave yourself. Kevala gana pratinahe danta Caitanya vimukha ye seta pashanda. Not only the misguided descendants of Advaita Acharya, but anyone who is against the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should be considered an atheist, subject to be punished by Yamaraj. Ki pandita ki tapasvi kiva grihi yati Chaitanya vimukha ye tara e gati. Be he a learned scholar, a great ascetic, a successful householder, or a famous sannyasi. One who's against the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is destined to suffer the punishment meted out by Yamaraj. Yay, Lila. Shri Achyutanandera Mata, Shayacharyara Gana Mahabhagavata. The descendants of Advaita Acharya who accepted the path of Shri Achyutananda were all great devotees. In this connection, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Amrita Prabhava Bhasha, gives this short note. Advaita Acharya is one of the important trunks of the Bhakti Kalpa Turu, or desire tree of devotional service. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a gardener, poured water on the root of the bhakti tree and thus nourished all its trunks and branches. But nevertheless, under the spell of Maya, the most unfortunate condition of a living entity, some of the branches, not accepting the gardener who poured water on them, considered the trunk the only cause of the great bhakti kalpataru. In other words, the branches or descendants of Advaita Acharya considered Advaita Acharya the original cause of the devotional kripa, and who thus neglected or disobeyed the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, deprived themselves of the effect of being watered and thus dried up and died. It is further to be understood that not only the misguided descendants of Advaita Acharya, but anyone who has no connection with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even if he is independently a great sannyasi, learned scholar, or ascetic, is like a dried, dead branch of a tree. This analysis by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, supporting the statements of Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, depicts the position of the present so-called Hindu religion, which being predominantly conducted by the Mayavada philosophy, has become a hodgepodge institution of various concocted ideas. Mayavadis greatly fear the Krishna consciousness movement and accuse it of spoiling the Hindu religion because it accepts people from all parts of the world and all religious sects and scientifically engages them in the Daiva Varnashram Dharma. As we have explained several times, however, we find no such word as Hindu in the Vedic literature. The word most probably came from Afghanistan, a predominantly Muslim country, and originally referred to a mountain pass in Afghanistan known as Hindu Kush, which is still part of a trade route between India and various Muslim countries. So there's different explanations about how the word Hindu came. Actually, one explanation we heard is that it was originally referred to as called Sindhu, which basically means a body of water. So everybody on who was on one side of the body of water was Sindhu, and everybody on the other side was whatever they were. And then Sindhu couldn't be pronounced properly, particularly by people from Iran. Unstable again. This internet connection is in Maya. So it became, they couldn't pronounce an S, so it became Hindu. And that's where the word Hindu came. It was a geographical designation, not a religious designation. So everybody who wasn't a Muslim in India was basically called a Hindu, including the Buddhists, including the Jains and everybody else. So who knows what Hinduism is? Now, if you go to the university, they'll teach you that Hinduism is basically very, very much impersonalism or a worship of many, 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 many different gods. Or they'll teach you that there's different branches of Hinduism, like Vaishnavism and Shaivism. I mean, there's so many different slants in their teaching. But whatever Hinduism is. Whenever I go to the university and people ask me, are you Hindu? I say, I don't even know what Hindu is. It's a geographical designation. So obviously I couldn't be a Hindu because I wasn't born in India, because it's geographical. It's just like, someone who wasn't born in America isn't, well, they can actually become an official American after some time, but they're not a native born American. So anyway, basically, there's no clear definition even of the word Hindu, although it's used, and it wasn't used internally until about 150, 200 years ago, maybe 300 years ago, but previously it was used externally. In other words, other groups called people in India Hindus, or people who weren't Muslims Hindus. And then later on, it became adopted as an internal designation because it was used so much by the external people. Anyway, that's what a Hindu is, if you can understand. The actual Vedic system of religion is called Varnashram Dharma, as confirmed in the Vishnu Purana. Varnashrama Charavata Purukshena Para Puman Vishnu Rajate Panta Nanyata Tosha Karnam. That's from the Caitanya Caritamrta, Lila 8:58, and also from the Vishnu Purana 3:8-9. The Vedic literature recommends that a human being follow the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Accepting the process of Varnashram Dharma will make a person's life successful, because this will connect him with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the goal of human life. Therefore, the Krishna conscious movement is meant for all humanity. Although human society has different sections or subdivisions, all human beings belong to one species. And therefore, we accept that they all have the ability to understand their constitutional position in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms Jivela Sarupahai Krishnara Nichadas. It's also in the Caitanya Charitamrta, Lila 20th chapter, text 108. Every living entity is an eternal part and eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Every living entity who attains the human form of life can understand the importance of his position and become eligible to become a devotee of Lord Krishna. We take it for granted, therefore, that all humanity should be educated in Krishna consciousness. Indeed, in all parts of the world, in every country where we preach the Sankirtana movement, we find that people very easily accept the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra without hesitation. The visible effect of this chanting is that the members of the Hare Krishna movement, regardless of their backgrounds, all give up the four principles of sinful life and come to an elevated standard of devotion. Although posing as great scholars, ascetics, householders, and swamis, the so-called followers of the Hindu religion are all useless, dried-up branches of the Vedic religion. They're impotent. They cannot do anything to spread the Vedic culture for the benefit of human society. The essence of Vedic culture is the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya instructed, Adhyate Deka Tare Kaha Krishna Padesha Mahara Agyaya Guru Honya Tare Desh. That's from the Caitanya Charitamrta, Lila 7th chapter, text 128. One should simply instruct everyone he meets regarding the principles of Krishna Katha as expressed in Bhagavad Gita as it is in Srimad Bhagavatam. One who has no interest in Krishna Katha or the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like dry, useless wood with no living force. The ISKCON branch, being directly watered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is becoming undoubtedly successful, whereas the disconnected branches of the so-called Hindu religion that are envious of ISKCON are drying up and dying. Pretty heavy words there. Okay, so we're ending with text 73, and tomorrow we'll do text 74. So we did 50 to 73, and internet connection's unstable again. Anyway, so we're going to take some questions. Let you ask questions. Okay. Who wants to ask a question?
I have question, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances always to Prabhupada. Unless somebody else has, it's okay.
I'll let you ask questions. Yes, I do accept your obeisances today.
You are wonderful, Maharaj. Thank you.
I know I say that about myself every day.
Maharaj, just a curiosity. How do you present compassion to mother-in-law in a preaching field if you give when you give class and say, you know, mother-in-law was not in the same mood, she's thrown out of the Sankirtan. relishing Sankirtan Prema. I mean, there has to be something added with it. Otherwise, it sounds very harsh.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like we're against mothers-in-laws. I know some people who are against mothers-in-laws, but anyway, we're not against mothers-in-laws. It's just that she wasn't really qualified. The rule was that someone had to be a pure devotee to come in. These are like intimate pastimes of the Lord. I mean, it's just like anything. Like if, let's say, if you have a confidential conference, whether it's a business conference or a political conference, and someone sneaks in, you're going to allow them to stay?
No.
So it's the same thing. It's not that there was any bias against mothers-in-laws. Actually, Srivas Thakur had a servant, a maid servant, whose name was Dookie, unhappy, and he let her stay. She was just a simple maid servant, and Lord Chaitanya changed her name to Suki, right?
Yes.
So it's not, there was no bias against women, no bias against mother-in-laws per se. It's just that someone had to be qualified to be in there. I mean, there were women there, there were men there, there were children there. I mean, Srivas Thakur's son was there, of course, he passed away during one of the kirtans. And, Chutananda was there, Advaitacharya's son was there sometimes in the kirtan. So it's not that there was any bias against anyone because of their relationship or because of their body or anything like that. It's just that someone had to have the right consciousness to see these intimate expressions of love. And Lord Chaitanya was manifesting all these intimate expressions of love. Just like if someone is talking to someone that they love very much, you don't want some strangers present. It's just like, it just spoils the mood. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's chanting and exhibitions of, did you disappear? Oh, there you are. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's chanting and exhibitions of ecstasy were manifestations of his intimate love for Radha and Krishna. Now, when he didn't manifest his intimate love and he was just chanting, he'd do that on the street, the Nagar Kirtan. And that was fine. Everybody could see. Just that when you talk about, like, let's say you have a meeting with your family and you're just discussing family business. You don't want people outside listening to it. It's just like it's your business. So, and it's very intimate. And people won't understand. People will criticize. If someone is envious, you don't want them in there. So that was the problem with the mother-in-law. Not that she was a mother-in-law, but, anyway, yes, we should explain it. So I explained it.
So Maharaj, if this is the case, say my time comes somewhere, some life I happen, what can I do? Fell at the feet of Sivas or Mahaprabhu and beg them to, how can I be instead of out?
So you are afraid that if you try to go into the kirtan of Srivas Thakur, you're going to be kicked out, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So therefore, you present your credentials. Just like, I hate to use this example, just like if someone wants to go to a bar, they have this thing they call, they ID you. They want to see if you're a proper age. I never went to a bar. I don't know if you ever did, but I never went to a bar.
No.
So anyway, so they check your identification, make sure you're a certain age. So if you happen to see the kirtan or go near the door where Lord Chaitanya's kirtan is taking place, you present your ID. What is your ID? You tell me.
I am a follower. My mentor is His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami.
No, then they won't let you in. Oh my God.
They will, Maharaj. That's the thing I'm holding.
And if you say that, then they'll say, we have 3 doors for you. You know the 3 doors going to hell? Lust, anger, and greed.
No, Maharaj. You are humble.
Don't use my name. Use Prabhupada's name.
Of course, with you.
Not with me. Just don't mention my name. If you mention my name, you will never get in the Kirtan. I mean, the only thing my name will get you to is Yamaraj's abode. If you just
Maharaj,
anyway,
more you deny your due to your humility, more it's stronger establishing in my heart.
It's not humility, it's truthfulness. You know, lower than the worm's stool.
Maharaj, can I ask you a silly personal question?
Well, that's the point. That's how you get into the kirtan. You present your credentials. Okay. You say,
okay,
I am Srila Prabhupada's follower. Okay. And they'll look on the list and say, oh, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Oh, good. You can come in.
Thank you. I like that. I'll try to remember that, Maharaj, eternally.
Yes, if you remember that, you will get into the kirtan.
And you establish that in my heart. So I appreciate. Thank you for that.
That's all you got to do is present those credentials and they'll let you in.
Okay.
Just by being connected to His divine grace to the Prabhupada, then there's no doubt. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Maharaj, can I just ask you a silly personal question?
Oh my God, yeah.
If you never heard the story of Kamalakar Biswas, I just happen to ask you that question. Okay, Advaita Acharya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Your Holiness, would you like to help to pay the debts of 300 rupees?
Well, if I was the king, I would pay it, yes.
Advaita Acharya is a Supreme Lord, but he has a 300 rupees debts. Would you help to pay?
I would say you're contradicting yourself. I would say you're contradicting yourself, but if you're asking me for the money, I'd pay the money. I would say, he's the Supreme Lord, and by his Yogamaya potency, it appears that he needs money, so I want to participate in this Lila. So
you are wonderful. Thank you.
That's the way I would respond.
You gave 100% perfect answer, Maharaj. Thank you.
Well.
No, it's wonderful the way you present.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Tomorrow I'll send you more money for saying nice things about me. Everybody, note down his PayPal account so you can send him money. And he's making my life worthwhile. All right, let's take questions from someone else. Someone else ask questions.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Go.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances to you. All glories to
Prabhupada.
Yeah. So my question is actually outside of today's context of reading. We learn from Canto 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam that a non-devotee son delivers only the seed-giving father, and the mother and the wife has to be a chaste-full, faithful wife. But on the other hand, a devotee, a son or a daughter delivers both the parents. So
yes.
So my question is, in a devotee family, say, if the wife or the mother is a better devotee than the rest, does she has to share the karma of the husband as well, or she can go back home, back to Godhead on her own accord?
If she is a better devotee, she doesn't have any karma from anybody.
Okay.
And she can become the spiritual master of her husband and save her husband.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Prabhupada actually said, there's actually a letter, which I don't have in front of me, where Prabhupada said generally, you know, the husband, like the spiritual master of the wife, but in the case that the wife is more spiritually advanced, the wife becomes the spiritual master of the husband and delivers him.
Yes. Yes.
So, yes, I mean, I know about these things because right now we're having a whole discussion about Vaishnavi Diksha Gurus. And it doesn't matter. Kiva Vipra, Kiva Nyasi, Shudakena Naya, Krishna Tattva Se Guru Hai. It doesn't matter what someone is, what type of body they have. If one knows the science of Krishna, then basically at that point, he or she can become guru.
Right. Yes.
So wife should deliver the husband. The husband should be a chaste husband. Yes, why not? Why should just the wife be chaste? The husband should be chaste. And let the husband take care of the babies.
Yeah. That'll be an ideal Grihastha.
Why not? I mean, the only thing the husband can't do is have a baby. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he can take care of them. Why not? And raise Krishna conscious children. All right.
Thank you.
So you should become guru.
I'm just happy to be under yourself, Guru Maharaj.
All right. So become guru. All right. So who else has a question? Anybody else? If not, we can end. Still got a few more minutes. No one else in the whole.
If no one else, I have another question.
Oh my God. Okay.
Sorry, Maharaj.
All right.
The end of this chapter, you are giving such a nectar. I really appreciate, Maharaj. I never read Chaitanya Charitamrta like that. You are creating a environment where all the question or doubt is already reconciled by your own insight, and I appreciate that. So, end of this chapter, it says that anybody remembers just the name will be liberated.
That's right.
And will get fulfilled all the desire. So then my question is, how the bhakti is intentional with commitment and efforts. Here is just by remembering, it's like automatically I'll get everything.
Yes, but remembering is not such an easy thing. For how many minutes a day do you actually remember that you're an eternal servant of Krishna?
Not much.
Not much.
No.
Can you count? Or even me, I don't want to talk about you. Maybe I remember like once in the day that I'm eternal servant of Krishna. The rest of the time I'm thinking that Ishwaroham aham bhogi, Siroham balavan sukhi. You know that verse?
No, I don't believe you thinking that.
But you know what that verse?
Yes, I do, Maharaj. 16th chapter. Very well. Everybody knows that verse. But you are not. You are acting on the platform of I am servant of Prabhupada. So you are acting. Action is more than just thinking.
Action, but thinking has to be there too. Acting. What is it? Sannyasi has to be mind, body, and words, not just body. So remember that Tridandi sannyasi is mind, body, and words. Actually, there's four. The soul engaged, mind, body, and words. So it's not enough. Krishna says, it actually says, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindya. That one should actually fix his mind on Krishna. And the first regulative principle is one should always remember Krishna, and the second one is one should never forget Krishna. Those are the two regulative principles. So it's not just engaging the body, because if one just engages the body in Krishna's service, without engaging the mind, that's niyamagraha, isn't it?
Yeah, but without engaging your mind, Maharaj, you would not be keeping every day doing what you're doing.
Yeah, just put
I
myself
agree
on.
with you.
I put
I
myself
agree
on.
with you.
I put myself on automatic pilot. I'm just doing what I'm doing so I can eat tasty prasadam every day. I mean, I have tasty prasadam and play with my computer. That's all. Anyway, the point is, yes, just by remembering the lotus feet, Rupa Raghunatha Pade, of Rupa and Raghunath, the spiritual master, the Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Dvaitacharya, Gadadhar, Pandra, Srivas, and you go back to Godhead, but remembering is very difficult. How difficult it is. If you actually think about it, do we actually keep remembering all day long that we're eternal servant of Krishna, Jivara Swarupa Nitya Krishna Das? Or maybe just for a few moments a day, remember that. So very difficult. And actually the secret to remembering is Kirtaniya Sadahare. But in order to be a Kirtaniya Sadahare, then you also have to be Trinadapi Sunichena Torodi Vasihishana. And that's really hard. To me, the hardest thing is being humble. Isn't it? I mean, it's really hard. Trinadapi Sunichena Torodi Vasihishana. Mani na manadena Kirtaniya Sadahare. Because in this day and age, remembering Krishna means Kirtaniya Sadahare. And in order to do that, one has to be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of respect, lower than the blade of grass. That's very hard. Generally we're always thinking that we're very important, and I'm thinking I'm guru, so many people love me. And then you're saying you're a wonderful Maharaj, and I'm becoming more puffed up like the frog that, the frog that Prabhupada talks about, Mr. Frog, Dr. Frog.
Yeah.
That's me. He just puffs himself up, and finally explodes. Anyway, it's fun talking to you. So anyway,
I'm sorry, Maharaj. You are the way you express. You have to have a genuine humility. Otherwise, somebody cannot speak like that. I'm not trying to flatter you, Maharaj, but I have to also examine the example.
if I had genuine humility, I would be in love with Krishna. Every time, if I was in love with Krishna, every time I'd say Krishna's name, I would feel symptoms of ecstasy. It's not like that. I'm just an ordinary jiva soul who's trying to serve Prabhupada. Okay, enough. All right, see everybody tomorrow night, same time, same station. All